All right, the books I read in 2025 and what they taught me. This is part of a bigger year in review thing I want to start doing. I'm going to do for the first time in 2025. And I figured I'd record this one and make it public because why not? I also want to start creating more content in 2026. And so figured this would be a good way to kickstart things, even though I'm going to use this channel mostly for agency related content. I figured I would put this here too because, again, why not? I just want to start creating. So this is probably a good way to start, and it's also a good way for me to start paying more attention to the whole year in review thing, which I wanted to do over the holidays break, and I'm going to start doing now. And so I'm going to talk about the books that I read this year, the ones that I enjoyed the most, what I learned from them, and I also don't think you necessarily read to learn things. You sometimes just want to read to have a good time and enjoy. And so I also want to talk about some of the books that I read that I enjoyed the most and would recommend, and some of the books that I read that I don't think were that great and I wouldn't recommend as much, even though they get a ton of publicity. And anyways, let's just get started. So I have them ranked by 1 star to 5 stars in terms of how much I enjoyed them. And I also didn't finish reading all of these books. Some of them I read for the first time, some of them I reread. Some of them I didn't finish reading, but I added them all to this one Notion list. And so I'm just going to read off of it. And so yeah, to start things off, I have 3 books here. One of them is actually right next to me. Here it is. And so yeah, Discourses by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, Poor Richard's Almanac, which was written by Ben Franklin, and the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I wrote those down as constant because these are books that some of them I started reading years ago or read for the first time years ago, and I still have them around, and I'll always just flip through some of the pages. And every time I read them, it's funny because I feel like I gain some new insights from things that I have already read tons of times in the past. So maybe it's something that's happening with me right now in my life, and then I'll read a passage from the Meditations, and I'm like, oh, this makes much more sense now that I have the adequate context to interpret this. And so yeah, those and then the Poor Richard's Almanac is just a lot of quick and funny wisdom. I just like to read it every now and again, just to remind myself of some of the maxims that he shared. And so those 4 books, obviously, again, I think that Poor Richard's is in a different category, but the Meditations, Navalmanac, and Discourses by Epictetus, especially Discourses by Epictetus, I think these 4 books are really important to me, and I plan to just keep reading them as constant, because I think there's always something to be learned. And I think also this was kind of the purpose of the books from the beginning. Discourses and The Enchiridion are books that are supposed to be, you always are supposed to be reading them. It's not something that you read once and then you drop them or move on. It's something that you have to keep studying and reminding yourself of and practicing the learnings you get from them. And so just wanted to mention those 4 first because I think they sit in this special kind of category, which differs them from the other books. So with that out of the way, the first book that I finished reading in 2025 was it's not a book per se, but the Wool Trilogy, which is Wool Shift, is it Wool Trilogy or is it the Silo Trilogy? I don't know. But Wool, Shift, and Dust, which is the books that inspired the Silo series on Apple TV+. And so again, it's a trilogy. I read the first book last year, and then I read the second and third one in the beginning of this year. It's science fiction. The TV show, I watched the TV show, the first season, and thought it was really good and was interested to then read the book. And yeah, I ranked it a 4 out of 5 stars because I think it was very entertaining. At first, I thought I wasn't understanding things. It felt a bit weird, and I felt out of context in the world because you have that image that is painted by the TV series if you watched it first, and then you're okay, what's happening? But then I would say by the middle of the first book, things picked up and got faster and cooler to read, or more fun to read. And so yeah, the first book was really good. It ended on a high note. The second book was interesting because I don't want to spoil anything, but it has a back and forth with the past and then the present. and I thought that was like really, really well done and really engaging because it always kept the story fresh. Like it made the pacing really good. And then the third book was like the slowest of them all, and I think the weakest of them all. And then the ending, it's always hard to end like such a good story and such an epic story that has like such a good build up. But I think they did it well. I think it ended on a high note. I ranked it 4 stars because I liked it. I haven't read much more science fiction since then because it was just like so long. It's like 1,000 pages long if you add up the 3 books. But I thought it was good. I would recommend it if you're into science fiction and you watch this. If you watch the first season of the show, which I think is really good, the second one I think was a bit underwhelming. But if you watch the first season and you thought that was nice, I think it's worth reading the book. Some of the things are obviously different, and I think the book does them better. And anyways, it's just a lot of fun. If you like science fiction, you might want to pick that up. I would recommend it. Second book I read in 2025 was Never Enough by Andrew Wilkinson, From Barista to Billionaire. And I really like, this was a fun one because I ranked it 2 out of 5 stars. And I actually really like Andrew Wilkinson. I've listened to many of his podcasts, many of his interviews. I've read a lot of his writing from the past. And I just relate to him a lot in a lot of different ways. And am really inspired by him and what he's done. And I just really like him as a person from like watching, again, listening to his podcasts, the podcast that he's been on, and watching his interviews and stuff. But the book just never clicked to me. I don't know. I thought he was, for someone who I relate to so much from listening to him, I felt like the book made him very like unrelatable. And I thought it wasn't, I don't know. I think maybe I should read it again and I would have a different interpretation of it. But I just thought it was like a weird, window into his life or his reality, and I thought it was, I didn't swallow it that well. That said, I do think there are some parts of the book, especially like in the beginning when he's talking about building the agency, and those things really resonated with me. I got a lot of cool insights about like hiring, and if you can hire someone, like for example, if you can hire someone to do the same thing you would be doing, but you can hire them for like a lower rate than you would do it yourself, and then you can arbitrage that with the price against the price that you're selling the service for. Obviously, that's like agency 101 and business 101, but reading it from his perspective, from his experience being so young, the same way that I'm quite young in building my agency, I thought that was really nice. Other like cool parts of the book when he's talking about like charity and he's talking about meeting his heroes and stuff like that, I thought that was also like really nice and made the story fun. And I think I read this like in like a week, so I didn't stay with the book that long. But yeah, I expected more, if I'm being honest. But I don't think it's a horrible book. I just probably wouldn't read it again. I'm not interested in reading it again anytime soon. That said, I still really like Andrew Wilkinson. I still really recommend his content, and every now and again I rewatch some of his podcasts that I've already listened to in the past, and I really like them, and I learn a lot from him. And so yeah, I was just surprised that this book didn't live to my expectations. Let's say live up to my expectations. All right, the third book that I read in 2025 was The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot recommend this book enough. I actually listened to the audiobook instead of reading the actual book, and I thought that was, I preferred it, to be honest. I sometimes like listening audiobooks over reading, or it's like easier, and I thought it was so good. It's definitely a book that I would recommend to everyone. It changed me in a way that a lot of, like it's rare for me to consume a piece of like content that impacts me and has such an impact on me and changes the way I think and view the world so much. And I think this book really did that. It talks about morals, morality. It talks about moral psychology. And yeah, I think this book will just make you a much more open-minded person, a much more empathetic person. I don't want to get like too deep into it, but I just cannot recommend this book enough. Again, it was really, really good. It was really surprising because I wasn't expecting this book to be this good. The reason why I read it is because last year I actually read The Elephant in the Brain, which I also thought was really good, but in like some ways I thought it was a bit like cheesy and wasn't, I don't know, as well written. Whereas this one was just like, Jonathan Haidt is an amazing author, writer. The book is so many cool stories, so many good like analogies and anecdotes. again, 5 out of 5. It's a fantastic book. It really changed the way I view the world. I see the world, and I cannot recommend it enough. I know I said this like 5 times already. Moving on, the fourth book, audiobook that I listened to this year. I mean, the fourth book that I read this year. I will stop differentiating them from like audiobook and regular book, but it was Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey, and again, this was the audiobook version, which I really recommend. This was also a 5 out of 5 stars, and this book is just fantastic. This is one of those books that like it's such a good time. It's like watching a TV series. It's like watching like a comedy special or something. It was so good. He's such an entertaining guy. He's such an entertaining narrator. You feel like you're with him, listening to his stories and the things that he's gone through, and the learnings that he has had. Yeah, it was such a great book. I cannot, like, if you like Matthew McConaughey, especially, I wasn't so fond of him before. I liked him, but after listening to this book, I consider myself like a huge fan now, and I had so much fun listening to it. Definitely gonna be listening to this one again in 2026. And yeah, if you just want to have like a good time and listen to some fun stories, some of them are weird. I'm gonna I will make this as a caveat. Some of the stories that he tells are like, what, like it's kind of hard to relate because he had like a weird, not in a bad way, but an eccentric maybe upbringing, and then obviously like becoming so like famous and all that also makes your life exceptional in a way. And so but yeah, it's a fantastic book. I'll recommend it to anyone, especially guys. I think will have a lot of fun listening to it. So yeah, if you like Matthew McConaughey, if you like his movies, maybe give this a go. And if you do, again, pick up the audiobook, because I think it makes the experience so much better. I haven't read the book, but like read, but I can't imagine consuming the contents of this book without it being through his narration, which I think was just spectacular. So yeah, book number 4, Greenlights, 5 out of 5, really recommend it. Number 5, I reread How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is obviously like a cheesy kind of book. I think everyone has recommended it in the past and has read it, but it's just a great book to always be reading. I think it kind of goes into that same category of the other books that I mentioned before, where they're like a constant, where the things that you read in this book are so timeless, and you always want to be like reminding yourself of them. Like you always gonna want to be like refreshing your memory when it comes to like how to properly like navigate certain social situations, some relationships, how to deal with people. And this book is obviously like the freaking Bible when it comes to that. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. What else can I say? It's just a great book. I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, go do yourself a favor and pick up this book and read it, because it's really good. And again, some parts of it are kind of cheesy, but I think it's a book that has been around for almost like 100 years at this point, and it's still being recommended. So it has to have some good value in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have survived the test of time. So yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People, book number 5, highly recommended, 5 out of 5. Number 6 was The Molecule of More. I haven't written down the author of this book, but yeah, this is a book that talks about dopamine. I also listened to this book because I had it in my Audible library for a while. I think I got it when it was like free or something, and I was just like looking for something different to read, and so, or like to consume, and so I picked up this audiobook, and I thought it was really nice. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I thought it was interesting, but it's not the best book that I've read, nor like the most memorable. If you're into like neuroscience and all that stuff, it's probably going to be more fun. If you read the book, it's probably also going to be better than if you listen to it, because a lot of this stuff is it's denser and more complicated, and you want to probably spend more time, or you probably want to take more time like reading it and like studying it and digesting it, rather than like listening to it while you're cooking or while you're cleaning the house, which is what I did. And so yeah, 3 out of 5. I wouldn't not recommend it, but it's also not a book that I'm like, oh my god, you should read it. It's just, it hasn't made much of an impact on me. Number 7, Zero, The Biography of a Dangerous Idea. This is actually a book that I quoted a couple of days ago while I was having lunch with my family. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and the reason why I didn't give this one 5 out of 5 is because I also listened to the audiobook instead of reading it, and I think this is a book that you should read instead of listen to. Even though like it was a fun listen, I think it falls into the same. It has some of that same problem where some of the parts of this book, like some of the chapters, you would much rather have some time to digest and read through, like with a little bit more, like you want to take your time. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's a fantastic book. It's so interesting. Like I had no idea. Basically, the book talks about how the concept of the number 0 came to be, and how in the past people denied its existence. It was almost like a religious thing, and how it impacted mathematics, how it impacted the way we see the world, how it impacted like ancient like Greek and Roman philosophy, like the idea of 0 existing or it not existing, like Aristotle's relationship to 0 and to the idea of like the void and nothingness. It's a very interesting book. It's definitely worth reading. Again, especially reading if you do pick up the regular book instead of the audiobook, because this one was really, really cool. It was the first person who I saw mentioning this book was Brian Johnson, the longevity guy, and yeah, you can really relate it to a lot of the things that a lot of popular like inventors or revolutionary people were doing. And so yeah, Zero, The Biography of a Dangerous Idea. Again, haven't written down the author, but it's a great book. I really recommend it. It's going to be one of the most interesting reads. It probably was one of the most interesting reads of 2025, and so I really recommend it. I think you should pick it up. Number 8, and this came as maybe like a follow-up, or this was also recommended in that The Elephant in the Brain book. It's called The Case Against Education. Also haven't written down the author's name, and I didn't finish this book, and the reason why, I gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's maybe like a 2 out of 5 stars for me. I don't know. I agree with the premise of the book. I think its argument is correct. It's just that it just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again for like 10 hours. I had the audiobook too. Like I get it. This is one of those books that like maybe I'm doing it injustice because I haven't read it through the end, but the reason why I haven't read it through is because it didn't captivate me enough. Like I didn't see the point of finishing it. I do agree with the author's point. I think it's true, and I think it's something that people tend to ignore or look over. I think he's right, but I agreed with him in 2-3 chapters. I didn't need the last 10 chapters to keep agreeing with him more. And I think again he was just providing more data and more citing more like papers and stuff. Maybe something interesting comes up in the end, but I just couldn't get myself to get to the end to see what was gonna come. So yeah, not a bad book. If you want to read a summary of it, it's probably gonna make the same impact as if you read like the whole thing. So people say it's a good book. I don't know. Number 9, Phil Knight's Memoir, Shoe Dog. This was one of those books where like if you go on Twitter on like those listicles about books and stuff, this is such a highly recommended book. I think it's like a highly rated book on Goodreads, and everyone says it's a fantastic biography and wow, it's so cool and whatnot. I thought it was okay. Like I gave it a 3 out of 5. I don't know. I just don't think I'll get to it. Like part of the reason why I thought this book wasn't so great will come later in the video when I talk about another book that I read. But I think it was a great autobiography. I just don't think it was like as engaging. I think some of the stories were nice. It just shows that like entrepreneurship is like, I think Elon says this, but I think that entrepreneurship is like eating glass, like chewing glass. He just got he struggled so much through like the early years of Nike, and like seeing that, reading that really makes you inspired, because it makes you think that like, holy shit, you really have to go through a lot to eventually see like this like worldwide success. Not that you have to, but sometimes it happens, and that's how it is. Like you have to endure all that struggle to then get to like the finish line and become a big thing. And this book is just a masterclass on that and his story. I do think it was inspiring. I just don't think it was like the best biography I've ever read, and so I probably wouldn't recommend. I mean, if you want to pick it up, if you like Nike, if you like Phil Knight, and if you want to get into reading biographies, maybe pick this up because you might find it better than I did. But overall, just I wouldn't read it again. So yeah, 3 out of 5, not bad by any means, but also not great. So that's it. Number 10 was the Harvard Psychedelic Club. I listened to this audiobook. This was really fun. I'm gonna talk about How to Change Your Mind in a minute because I reread it later in the year. But this book talks about like the backstory, like the behind the scenes of how like the Harvard Psychedelic Club came to be, and the things they were doing back then in the first era of like psychedelic science. It talks about Timothy Leary, Richard Alpert, which is Ram Dass, and then the 2 other guys who I don't remember as well. Those 2 are the ones that made the biggest impression on me. But their story, how they were all connected, it's really fun to see how like a lot of the people, like how everything that was happening in that first era of like the psychedelic, I can't call it a renaissance, but like that first era of like the psychedelic birth in science in the mainstream, how everyone knew each other and was kind of connected. And yeah, it's a fun story. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I gave it a 3 out of 5 just because I probably wouldn't pick it up again. But if you're interested in the story of like the psychedelic science and how things came to be, I think this is a fun read or a fun listen. I got the audiobook. I would recommend reading or listening to How to Change Your Mind first, but then if you want to get deeper into it, this book is definitely like a fun book to pick up. So yeah, not much to say about it. It was cool, but that was basically it. Number 11, The Greatest Salesman in the World. This is a book that was recommended in Matthew McConaughey's biography, Greenlights, and it was also recommended to me by someone else that I was talking to at some point. And I just thought I give it a 2 out of 5. It's just not for me. I don't think it's a horrible book. I think a lot of people will read it and will think it's fantastic, and that's why it's so popular and famous, and that's why probably Matthew McConaughey loves it so much. It just didn't sit with me well. I don't know. I read it like through the end, like all the way through, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of cheesy, definitely very cheesy, but some people like that. It's just basic, like 101, self-help 101. You can probably get inspired by it to like do better and be more industrious and disciplined and all that. But if you have read any self-help in the past or consumed any of that content, this will just be like, yeah, okay, you might get inspired, but I don't know, I didn't think it was anything too special, so I wouldn't recommend it. Number 12, Driven to Distraction. I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote this book, but he's like one of the first ADHD psychologists in the world. This was probably the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first book written on ADHD back in like the 90s. I give this book a 4 out of 5, and I think it was really nice. So maybe I'll bundle 3 books here into one review. I read Driven to Distraction, I read Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, and I read Mentes Inquietas. This is a book that was written by a Brazilian psychologist, I'm not sure. Driven to Distraction, I give it a 4 out of 5. Mentes Inquietas, the Brazilian one, I gave it a 3 out of 5, and I didn't finish it. And Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, I give it a 2 out of 5. I do think that all of these books, they serve the same purpose. Like the reason why I gave Mentes Inquietas 3 out of 5 and I didn't finish it, and Taking Charge of Adult ADHD 2 out of 5, even though I finished it. Since I read the first one and I thought it was good, I think that the other 2 didn't have much to add to like the things that I was reading, or like the things that I was learning about. And the reason why I read these books is because I was talking to a psychiatrist and I basically got diagnosed with ADHD, and so he told me you should probably read this book because I think you'll like it, you'll understand it better. And it served its purpose. Like if you're someone who struggles with ADHD or thinks you struggle with ADHD in any way, if that's even a thing, I think that picking up Driven to Distraction is worth it. I think it's a really like eye-opening book in a lot of ways. At least it was for me. And so, yeah, not a lot else to say. Like if you want to learn about it, I think it's good. I think that the Taking Charge of Adult ADHD book is like cheesy title, and I think it kind of sells itself as like a practical guide on how to like do things, but I thought it was just like, I think you'll get better tips or like strategies by talking with ChatGPT about it. You don't need to read a 300-page book to understand it or like get the gist of it. So yeah, if you're interested in reading any ADHD books, read Driven to Distraction or anything else written by that same author, because he's definitely really good. Again, Mentes Inquietas is probably good if you haven't read anything about it and you want to pick that up first. It's probably good. I like the way it was written. I just also thought it was a bit repetitive, so I wasn't very fond of finishing it. But yeah, moving on. Number 14, and the list is going to take a little bit of like a hit here because I bundled 3 of them together. But number 14 is The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. And this book is fantastic. It's like a very short read. You can probably read through it in like an hour or 2 at max. If you run any kind of like agency or online business, or even like a freelancing gig or anything, you have to pick up this book and read it. It's really, really good. It's not the most practical one, but it like has a lot of practical insights. It's a fantastic read. If you have an agency, if you do something online and you want to sell more stuff online, whatever, pick up this book. You won't regret it by any means. The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. You can also go on their website. He also has a lot of videos on YouTube. He has a bunch of like collaborations with Chris Do, the guy from the future. Fantastic book. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely pick it up. Number 15 was Models by Mark Manson. So I was on I was going through like a lot of Mark Manson's content. This was right around the time that he launched his newer podcast, Solved. And I really like his stuff. I listened to a bunch of the podcasts that he's been on and a few of his podcasts, and I always found myself agreeing with a lot of the points that he was making and relating to him in many ways. And I didn't know that he had written a book before The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck, and not giving a fuck, sorry. And when I found out about this book, I think I read someone on Twitter talking about it. I'm not really sure, but they were like, this book is a really great relationship, dating related book. You should pick it up. And it definitely was. I didn't agree with everything that was in it, but it definitely taught me a thing or two, or like, I don't know, gave me some different perspectives to relationships and dating that I thought were valuable. And yeah, this is a book that I would like recommend to all my male friends, probably not female friends, but it's a book that I would recommend to my guy friends, and I thought it was really good. And it's also like a very fun read. Mark is a great author. His writing is really good and really engaging. He's from like the blog era, so obviously, yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5. Highly recommend it. If you're a guy and you want to read something on dating, pick up this book. You'll enjoy it. All right, number 21, the Benjamin Franklin biography by Walter Isaacson. Oh no, sorry. Number 17, the autobiography by Ben Franklin. This was a fantastic read. It's a short book. It was written by Ben himself. I think that everyone should pick this up. I think it's so fascinating to read and like kind of get into the mind of someone who was such an important figure at that specific moment in time, and to see how some of the things that he was saying back then still makes so much sense in the 21st century. And I mean, they're just timeless. And he was such a smart guy. He was such an empathetic guy. He was so he definitely knew how smart he was, and he was not abusing that, but he was using that to the best. He was using that to the best of his advantages and like intentions, let's say. Yeah, it's just a really fun read. You can learn so much from this book. It was a really fun read. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I would definitely reread it. Like, it's one of those books that you can reread every year and it won't get bad ever. Yeah, a lot of cool insights were gained from reading this autobiography. And then this gets us into number 21, which is the Benjamin Franklin biography by Walter Isaacson, which I didn't finish yet, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And it's really cool because this is basically getting like the extended or like the 21st century version of the autobiography, in the sense that like he took a lot of the things from the original autobiography and expanded on them and gave more context to how like what was happening in that moment in time in Ben's life or like around him and all that. The reason why I didn't finish it is just because it's very long, and I think I picked it up right after I finished the autobiography, and so I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with Ben Franklin for now, but I'm definitely gonna go back to that book and finish it, even like reread it from the beginning, because I thought it was really, really cool. And yeah, if you want to get into Ben Franklin, probably read the autobiography first because it's shorter, and maybe a better way to get into him. The Walter Isaacson one is like a longer read and a more dense read, but very fun and very good nonetheless. So if you're interested, you won't regret picking that up. Number 22 was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, the audiobook version, which I also think if you're picking up this book, probably pick up the audiobook version because it has like a lot of, the Audible version has a lot of like extra commentary by David that added a lot of context to the story and his life. And this, I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I don't know why not a 5 out of 5. Maybe just because I disagree with some of the things in the book, but it's a fantastic read. This will get you like motivated to run through a wall. It's insane the amount of pain he is able to endure and all the things that he went through. This book is also like, it's very emotional. I had this book in my library for like more than a year now, and I first started reading it at a time where I was like feeling good and things were good and I was happy, and that first like hour or two is just so depressing. It's just like him getting like, I don't even want to say it, but just like it's just him getting fucked and his life was sucked so much, and to see someone live through that and eventually get to the point that he got to and become so successful and inspire dozens of millions of people throughout the world, it's really inspiring, and one of those books that, again, if you read it, you'll get motivated to run through a wall, do anything. I don't think this book will like take you out of depression the way they kind of talk about it, where it's like the exercises are fun, but in the end you gotta find that fire within yourself. It's something that's probably personal. You can't read your way through, like, maybe you can, I don't know, read your way through to taking action, but I think it was a very fun read, a very motivating and inspiring read. I would recommend this to everyone. It's just, if you're not so much into like hustle culture and personal development and whatnot, you'll probably find this boring eventually, or repetitive. But his story is really fucking cool. So if you're into Goggins in a way, pick this one up. And again, pick up the audiobook version because it has a lot of extra context and stories by him. And he's not narrating it, but he's participating in the narration process. You'll understand if you get it. But yeah, really, really cool. Can't recommend it enough. Number 23 was The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. And this one, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Similar to the Andrew Wilkinson one, I really like Sahil. I've listened to a bunch of the podcasts that he's been on. I think there's something to be said about this book and the one by Andrew Wilkinson, where it's like, since I've consumed so much of their content already, reading the book just feels like I'm rereading or like being reintroduced to so many concepts, but they're written the same way. So if you've known them before, like if you're familiar with them, it's like, okay, and like, so what? That's not to say this book isn't good. I think this is like probably one of the best like self-help books I've ever read. It covers so many different topics and it gives so much good advice. Like, it's, if you're in that like beginner phase, or if you're looking for some like self-help type motivation, inspiration and whatnot, I think this book is really, it's probably the go-to book. You know, if you want self-help at its best, The 5 Types of Wealth, and Sahil's content in general is really good. Like, I'm subscribed to his newsletter. I read it pretty much every time it comes out. Again, sometimes I think it's cheesy, but more often than not, I walk away from the reading. I walk away with something valuable to apply to my life or to think about. And so, yeah, Not the best book, but I would recommend it if you're interested in the topic. Number 24 was Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. And this is a very short read, but it's a really good, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's probably one of those books that you have to, like, again, keep, like, rereading as time goes by, because it talks about a very important part of, like, business and life as a whole, where it's like you have to double down on the things that you're good at and hire people to do the things that you're not so good at or not so interested in doing. This is basically the gist of the book, that, like, you have to find the things that you're good at and make them as much as you can, like, get into them as much as you can, and the things that you're not so good at, don't venture into them, or find other people to help you navigate them. And it's a very simple piece of advice when said like this, but I think that reading the book, he gives a lot of, like, good examples that make this make a lot more sense. And so yeah, I would recommend this book. Again, it's such a short read, it's probably, like, you can probably get through this book in like 45 minutes, so why not pick it up, you know. Number 25 was The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. It's the first book by, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he wrote a trilogy on Teddy Roosevelt, and this is a fantastic read. I actually picked up the audiobook. I haven't finished it yet because at some point it just got, like, kind of boring. I'll get into it in a minute, but I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's a fascinating story. Teddy Roosevelt was so ahead of his time, really inspiring, someone to learn a lot from, and yeah, just it's a different time, it's a different, like, context, so you have to like, ignore some of the things that he was doing or saying or whatnot, but he was a really good person for his time. He was really ahead of his time. His family was really the way his father raised him specifically, and the ideas that his father had about raising his children, the education he gave them, and the set of values he gave them, and he and his wife, or Teddy's mother, gave to him and his siblings, like, still hold up in many ways. Like, it's really interesting to see how, like, 150 years ago, people were so conscious of, like, a good set of morals. It's hard to put that in a different way, but it's just, he's a very inspiring guy. He's someone to look up to, definitely. It's easy to understand why he became president. And yeah, if you're interested in the story in any way, I would recommend picking up this book. I would recommend this book to anyone, actually. I know that some people don't like biographies, so sometimes I'll be like, you should read this, and if you don't like biographies, you just won't like any of them whatsoever. But if you do like them, if you're interested in, like, president's history, or, like, the US's history in that time period, and specifically his history, you'll definitely enjoy this. I think it was a very fun read, up until the point where it became kind of like, the trilogy is so long. It's like 3,000 pages, I think. It's like 1,000 pages each book, and some of the parts, like, drag on for so long. Like, they're talking about, like, hunting bison or something, and then it's like, I don't need, like, an hour of a freaking audiobook to learn about how, like, what was going on when he was hunting bison. You know, I want to learn more stuff. So maybe if there was, like, a shorter version of those, like, 3 books, I probably would have gone through, like, all of them by now. But I just need more. Like, I'll probably get back to this book eventually, like, at some point during this year, when I'm bored and have nothing else to read. I'll just, like, go back to this and finish it. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 for a reason. I think it was really good. You should pick it up. Number 26, Ender's Game. This one's also fiction, and this was recommended in one of those, like, Harvard, I think, like listicles about, like, fiction books that you should read for business or something, and I don't understand why. I gave it a 2 out of 5. I know a lot of people love this book. I just thought it was boring, and the story wasn't, like, didn't make me interested. So yeah, I didn't learn anything from it. I didn't finish it, and it wasn't my type of, like, book. I don't know, just I didn't vibe with the story so much, so I didn't finish it. Anyways, number 27, Never Eat Alone. This was actually a fun one because this is one of the first books that I bought and read in English in 2020 when I was, like, 18, and I didn't go through, like, all of it back then, and then I finished it this year because I had nothing else to read. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think this book is like when it's at its best, it's really good and the advice is really good. When it's like cliche and kind of like cringe, it's just so cliche and so cringe that it makes you like hurt. So yeah, I think like, and a lot of the advice of this book is like timely, like it doesn't hold up to 2026. So yeah, maybe don't pick this book up. If you want like the better, more timeless version of this book, just go read How to Win Friends and Influence People. He has some good like specific pieces of advice, but you can probably find those in like summaries of this book. Just Google Keith Ferrazzi, Never Eat Alone summary, or like Keith Ferrazzi podcast or whatever, and you'll probably find the same strategies. They'll probably be like more updated than the book is. So yeah, not a bad read, also not great, wouldn't recommend it. Number 28, Genius, The Life and Science of Richard Feynman. I didn't finish this book yet. It's kind of like a theme with like longer biographies, the ones that are like 600 pages, 700 pages long. I just don't finish a lot of them because if like the moment they get too boring, I'll just like stop reading. But there's one reason why I stopped reading this book actually, and I want to finish it. But the reason why I stopped reading it when I did was because I also started rereading the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson, and that is one of my favorite books. And so I was just so much more excited about rereading that book than I was about reading about Richard Feynman, who's also like a hero of mine and someone who I really admire. It's just the Steve Jobs one is much more, it's not that it's relatable, but I find it more interesting and it relates more to the things that I'm doing in my life right now. But the Richard Feynman one is fantastic. He's like a character, and this book is very different than the Surely You're Joking book, which was written by him. This is a much like broader view on his life and upbringing and whatnot. I think it's really good, and I'm actually like I forgot about this book. I want to reread it and finish it. I'll probably do it like early this year. So yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5 for the portion that I read, which is like probably like 30% of it. I do recommend it if you're into, especially if you're into like physics and mathematics and Richard Feynman. Go pick up this book because it's really good. You're probably going to enjoy it a lot. It's very well written too. Like it's engaging and it's fun. Again, the reason why I didn't finish it is because I was reading the Steve Jobs one and that was more engaging, more appealing to me personally. So number 29, getting into it, Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. I reread this book. I first read it like 3 years ago, I think, 2-3 years ago, and I thought it was fantastic back then. Or to put it better, I thought it was great back then. Now I think it's fantastic, and that's not even like the whole story. This book, like if you're into business in any sort of way, and if you like Apple and if you like Steve Jobs, and you don't have to be like the biggest fan. I think the book makes a great case for like what was wrong with Steve and his flaws, but this book is just so inspiring. And going back to why I was talking about the Phil Knight biography and why I thought it was good but not great, I think this is a great biography, and not even the best one on Steve, which I'll talk more about in a minute. But this is a great biography. This does everything right. It's interesting from beginning to end. Like all the stories are fun and interesting to read, and all the chapters make sense, and they pace it well. It's not super linear, like chronologically speaking, but I don't know. It's so interesting. Like his story is so interesting. He was such an interesting personality. The things that he did, the impact that he had in the world, and you learn so much from this book. Like if you're into business in any sort of way, and if you're like building a business or want to learn more about business, I think that reading a great biography on a businessman is much more valuable than reading any like off-the-shelf business books. And I think this one is a masterclass on how to like mix education inside of biography. Like you'll learn so much about business and about his philosophy when it came to business by reading this book. So yeah, this is a 5 out of 5. This is one of my favorite books ever. I just cannot recommend it enough. If you're into business, if you're into, again, Steve Jobs, Apple, freaking pick up this book and read it. You're not going to regret it. It's so much fun. Yeah, it's just like if you haven't, reading this book might change your life. I'm kidding, or maybe it will. I don't know. It's so good, and the first time I finished reading this book, I'm kind of the first time I finished reading it, I actually cried. Like, I was emotional about like how, like, I don't want to spoil anything. It's obviously like it's not a story, so you can just like look it up. But the way he died, he could have been alive still if he wasn't so stubborn and didn't have like, wasn't so stubborn. But also, like, would we have the products that we have right now? Would I be holding an iPhone and recording this on a MacBook laptop if he wasn't so stubborn too? I don't know. Like, maybe that's the cost of being such like a ruthless leader, businessman, and I don't know, genius. So yeah, it's a great book. Pick it up. Yeah, as you can tell, I really liked it. So I really like it, and I'll probably reread it again in the future. But again, I'll get into another book on Steve in a minute. So yeah, number 30 was Only the Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove, the Intel guy. This was a great book, but I think it's not as applicable for me as it is for like more advanced business people. Like, if you have a bigger business, bigger enterprise, let's say, you'll probably relate to this book much more than I did. I think it was fun. I think Andy is a great writer. I think his other book, High Output Management, is such a huge bestseller for a reason. I think everyone wants to learn from him. I mean, he was a big mentor to Steve, so there's a resume. But yeah, I just didn't think it was like that applicable to my current situation, and so at some point I was just like, okay, I'll just read something else because, I'll probably go back to this book in the future eventually. And yeah, I think this is one of those books. The same thing can be said about High Output Management, where it's like people who don't even have a business, they're just like entrepreneurs or want to get into business. They'll read that book and they'll be like, "Oh, this book is so good, But it's like, if you're not in a position to like manage like a team of people and like a lot of people in a big company, why are you even reading that book? Like, it's not, you won't learn anything from it. It's just like productive procrastination at that point. And I think that book had the same effect on me. Like, the situations that he's describing are so distant from like the business reality that I live, and so I just thought it wasn't that appealing. But good book. I'll probably come back to it in the future. If you're more advanced in business, you probably want to pick that up and you'll like it. So yeah. Number 31, Deep Work by Cal Newport. This is another one of those books where it's like, it's so highly recommended by everyone and they say it's great, and I just thought it was like, probably because I've read like some of Cal's written posts, I've listened to his podcasts, I've consumed a lot of the content that can be consumed on like deep work and productivity and getting more done with the time that you have and yada yada yada. So I don't think this book is bad. I think if you haven't read anything on like deep work, on how to get more done with the time that you have, this book will probably be great because every idea in it will be like new to you and it will be like, oh my god, this is like revolutionary. But if you have read or watched YouTube videos on productivity and all that stuff, this is just going to repeat a bunch of like concepts that you probably have read or listened to like a bunch of times in the past. So for that reason, I don't recommend it. I mean, it's context dependent, right? If you have read and consumed a lot of productivity content, don't pick up this book. If you haven't, do, because you'll like it a lot. I do think that the chapter that talks about memorizing a deck of cards was really interesting. That was probably worth the 2 stars. Like that gave the book the 2 stars, or like maybe made it worth a 3-star mention. But I don't know. It's just, yeah. TLDR, my productivity system is just like wake up early, fast, and get to work, and that's better than like a lot of like the advice out there, or like that's like 80% of like what you need to be more productive, at least for me. That's what I found. So yeah, that's it. Number 32, The 48 Laws of Power, the audiobook. I didn't finish this one, and maybe I was just like pissed off at this book, but I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. And I know this book is so like, again, also another book that's kind of like cliche and cheesy, and everyone talks about it and says it's fantastic, and Robert Greene is this great author, and he's impacted a lot of people and is famous and all that. It's for a reason. Like, people resonate with his writing and like his books, but I just thought it was weak. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I thought, like I think that people read this book or will read this book and they'll think like, this is how I'm supposed to act. This is how the world works, and so this is how I should do things and navigate relationships and yada yada. And I think that gives off the wrong message. And maybe this analysis is just like fake. This doesn't actually happen and exist. But like a lot of the laws contradict each other, and they're just like anecdotes from history that are like, oh, this is why this happens, or like this, if you do this, it will cause this. But then like 10 laws later, the book is contradicting itself with like a different law. And I think it just like, it creates this sort of like world where people, I don't know, are trying to like take advantage of each other, or like seeing the world through this like purely transactional lens. And yeah, I don't know. It didn't sit with me well. Maybe you'll read this book and you'll like it. It's just not for me. And so if you want to read it. I wouldn't recommend it, but some people love it, and so maybe you'll love it too, and I don't know, get something good out of it. I just didn't. There's one law, I'll say. There's one law that I thought was really interesting. I think it's law like 29 or something, 26, that talks about, well, you look it up. It's the law that talks about like the Midas touch. I thought that was really interesting. This is something that I'll definitely use in my life. Other than that, I think the other laws were like weaker and more. And this is one example of like a law that's like kind of like nonsense, but I think it's true. Like it probably has no like scientific backing or anything, but I thought it was interesting and probably very useful. So yeah. I talked too much about a book that I didn't like that much, so let's move on. Number 33, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. I reread this book. I re-listened to this book, the audiobook. This is a 5 out of 5 stars. I think that everyone should read this book. It's just, it's so good. If you know nothing about like psychedelics and the science and the renaissance of psychedelics and the early history of psychedelics and all of that, I think that the Netflix documentary is a great entry point. I think that everyone should watch that because it's a lot of fun, and it gives like a good it's a good way to get your foot in the water. And if you want to like dive deeper, you should pick up the book How to Change Your Mind that inspired the documentary, or like the series, because it is really good. Like it talks, and Michael Pollan is such a great writer. Like the book is so well written, it's so engaging, the stories are so fun to like listen to or read through, and I don't know, I also relate to him as a person in a lot of ways. I think like his, let's say, more like agnostic background, and the way that he perceives a lot of the things that are being like done in the psychedelic like culture and stuff. I just think this book was like, again, one of those books that like will really impact you. And if you have an open mind, if you pick up this book with an open mind, you'll learn a lot, and you'll be probably fascinated by what's being done with the most like what was done in the past and what's now being done with the most recent like psychedelic science and all that. So yeah, great book, really recommend it. 5 out of 5. If you're interested in any way, pick it up because you'll probably like it a lot. Number 34, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And this is written chronologically. If you read How to Change Your Mind, you'll probably understand why I started reading Brave New World right after reading How to Change Your Mind, because Aldous Huxley was related to the whole psychedelic movement in the 60s. And so yeah, I haven't finished this one. I want to finish it. The reason why I didn't finish it is because I went on a trip, and when I was there, I just stopped reading this book. And when I came back like a month ago, and I just haven't continued it so far. But I might finish it over the next like couple of days. I thought it was interesting. I'm not the biggest like science fiction fan or like fiction fan in general. I want to read more fiction. This is a goal of mine for 2026. And maybe I'll start with this book. But yeah, it was fun. I have to like, I didn't even give this one like a rating because I need to finish it before giving a proper opinion on it. So maybe I shouldn't even be talking about it. But yeah, I think I would recommend it. From what I read so far, I would recommend it, and I think it's gonna be fun, and I think it only gets better from where I'm at. So yeah. Number 35, Moral Tribes. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars, and this is one example for me, a great example of like the difference between a great book on a topic and a book on a topic. Like The Righteous Mind is such a fantastic and well-written book on moral psychology and this like topic as a whole, and such a great, it's like pop science, right? Or like pop psychology, let's say. And that book is so well written and so interesting and engaging, and it forces you to think differently. And I thought it was that book's a 5 out of 5 stars for a reason. Whereas this book, I gave it a 2 out of 5, and the reason why is because I thought that the author didn't come across as relatable at all. I think that he was just like, I'm smart, and here's why I'm smart, and here's why my thesis is correct, and here's why you should agree with me. Like, if you're trying to convince people of a point, that's probably not the way to do it, or at least this book wasn't the best way to do it. It's just, and okay, so the book talks about utilitarianism, right? And he tries to like rebrand it. And up until reading this book, I would say that I'm in a lot of situations I'm an utilitarian. Like, I would identify myself as a utilitarian, or I would, if I was having an argument, I would take the side of like the utilitarian position, you know, or I would look through the world through I would interpret events in the world. I would look through things with a utilitarian lens. And after reading this book, I'm like, I hate utilitarianism. I thought it was that was like the thing that I got from this book was just like, oh my god, like I thought the book was so bad that maybe I'm being like exaggerated here, but I just, yeah, okay, let me just say it. I thought the book was so bad that I'm like, how could you possibly make such a huge blunder when promoting what is supposed to be like a good idea, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I read some people talking about like how great this book is and how fantastic it is, and it's like such a great book after, or like a great pop psychology or like pop science book. But I just, like, if you want to learn more about moral psychology and you want a great argument for, it's not even like a unified moral, because this is what this book's proposing, right? It's trying to like give you a unified moral system, let's say, or like moral operating system. I think that's the terminology he uses. But the argument just falls flat for me. I don't really agree with him. I think it's more nuanced, and I think that, again, he was just being like, yes, this is why it's right, and the reason why it's right is because I'm smart, and because we've done this and this and this, and like this is the literature, and maybe this is the way to do it, and maybe I'm just like refusing a fact. Again, I do think that utilitarianism is right in many circumstances, but reading the book was so unenjoyable that I'm now like, okay, what is the like counter position to utilitarianism? Maybe I'll stand for that. Yeah, I don't know. I was just, let me say this: the first 2 chapters of the book are fantastic, are so well written, and then it just goes downhill from there, and it lost me. Like I didn't like it. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this book. If you want to get into moral psychology, just read The Righteous Mind. Jonathan Haidt is a fantastic author. The book is so well written, and yeah, and maybe pick this book up, and maybe you'll enjoy it. I don't know. Now, for the last book I read in 2025, this actually came after reading, or like one night before going to bed, I was just going through like Goodreads, and I wanted to see people's opinions on the Steve Jobs biography from Walter Isaacson. Since I like it so much, I was like, I wonder what other people think of that book. And then one comment stood out where it was like, this biography sucks. And I was like, okay, you got my attention because I like it so much. And basically the point the guy was making was like, this book just, the Walter Isaacson book, has a one-sided view of Steve and his life, and talks about him in a way that's like he didn't learn anything through the years. Like, he was the same asshole at 25, at 55 that he was when, like, he was the same guy at 25 and 55. He was like the same asshole, and that is not true. That he evolved a lot, and that he matured and grew a lot during the next years. So when he got ousted from Apple and went on to build Next and Pixar and then eventually returned to Apple, that those 10 years were like the most important of his life when it came to like maturing and like, again, growing up and becoming a better person. And it's true, the Walter Isaacson biography gives that period like a very brief chapter and doesn't get into much detail on that period. It just talks about like how he was still like very perfectionist and how he was like spending all this money to like make Next, or like to make Next be perceived as like the next big thing, no pun intended, and was trying to like hype it up as like his next big computer and the next big breakthrough in computing, which it wasn't. And it just kind of like made fun of that period. And then this book, Becoming Steve Jobs, I don't even know if I mentioned this book by now, but the Becoming Steve Jobs book, which is the last book that I read this year, really goes in depth about like Steve before he got ousted from Apple, like how he was as a person, what he learned through like the Next and Pixar years, and then how that impacted like Steve 2.0 when he returns to Apple in 1997 and goes on to build like the iMac, the iPhone, the iPod, the iPad, and made Apple the fucking titan and tycoon that it is, like the most valuable company in the world. Not now, like, but it was for a long time. And yeah, this book, surprisingly, this book is better than the Walter Isaacson one. I think this is probably like it gets everything right. I mean, the Walter Isaacson one, if you know nothing about Steve and you want like a better like overview of his like whole life, that does a better job at covering his whole story. But this book, if you're more interested in like the business part or the business side of things, and you already kind of know like Steve's story and you want to see like a different side of him, a more personal side of him, I think this is probably the best resource to do so, aside from his interviews and stuff. This book was actually written by the journalist that like didn't follow Steve around, but he was interviewing Steve when he was like in his 20s, first building Apple. I think the first time he interviewed him was during the Next years, but anyways, he knew Steve from like a very early age, and he saw him like mature and grow up, and he was able to contrast how he was like when he was younger and then how he was like when he was older, and how those 10 years building Next and building Pixar and then eventually selling Next to Apple and returning as CEO made him the legendary CEO and inventor and like genius that he is. And so yeah, I think that again, if you liked the Walter Isaacson biography on Steve Jobs, or if you thought it was interesting and you would like to consume more content on Steve Jobs, this is the book to read. Becoming Steve Jobs is a fascinating read. You get so much more insight into him as a person, into him as a businessman, into him as a father and family man. It was a lot of fun to read. And yeah, that's I'm thinking if there's anything else I would like to add about that book. But to sum things up, when I first read that comment on Goodreads about the Walter Isaacson book being like bad and not painting like the full picture, I was like, this guy is just probably a hater. And now I'm like, oh, I get it, that guy was right, because you read the two and you're like, okay, the second book gives you so much more nuance into the person he was and the things that he was doing and why he was doing them. Not to say that he was an angel, by no means, he still had his flaws, but this book just gives you like a much more let's say a much more gray picture of him. Instead of like a black and white, he's an asshole but he's also a genius, it's like it's somewhere in the middle, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun to read through. And that was the last book that I read this year. In total, adding up like all the books that I didn't finish and whatnot, it was like 36 books, and it was a great year. I wish, like everyone who reads, or I wish I had read more. I kind of like lost the habit of reading this like last month in like late November, December. I wasn't reading as much, so I probably could have read like an extra like 2 books by now. But I just want to read more in 2026. I want to dedicate more time to like intentional time to like sitting down and reading during the day, and not just like before I go to bed. The book that I'm currently reading, which this is already like January 1st, so I'm gonna finish in 2026, is Hard Drive it's a biography on Bill Gates. It's really interesting so far. I've read like 1/5 of the book so far, and it's really good. That's one book I want to finish reading. I want to finish reading the Richard Feynman biography that I was just like reminded of, Brave New World, and I want to read more biographies. I've figured that's the genre I like reading the most, and so I'll just like, as Peter Drucker suggested, I'll just double down on the things that I like and enjoy doing, because I'll probably do more of them if I focus on them. So yeah, I hope you liked this video. This is much longer than I intended this video to be. This probably edited will be like around an hour. But yeah, it was fun to talk through all of the books that I read, and it was easier than I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was gonna struggle a lot more, but yeah, that's it. If you liked it, if you have any books that you would like to recommend to me, or if you disagree about some of the books that I read, if you have different opinions and you want to share them, feel free to do so. Message me and whatever. Yeah, I don't know how to finish this video. I guess that's it. I wish you a wonderful 2026. If you read anything and you like it and you love it, let me know. Please recommend it to me. And yeah, I wish you a fantastic 2026. It's going to be a great year for all of us. And I hope you read a lot. Cheers.